For the second consecutive day, there was pandemonium in Parliament over the farm bills. 8 opposition MPs were suspended today for unruly behaviour during the passage of the bills in the Rajya Sabha on Sunday. They're at this moment sitting on a dharna right outside Parliament inside the complex itself. The MPs are threatening to sit on this dharna throughout the night, demanding the revocation of their suspension. The opposition is calling the bills illegal. But CCTV pictures from Sunday reveal the unruly behaviour of opposition MPs. Politics over the Kisan continues to rage on.
Unprecedented scenes in the Rajya Sabha. Farm reform bills passed amidst total chaos. This new footage shows how TMC MP Derek O'Brien tried to reach Rajya Sabha Deputy Chairman's desk. How the marshals had a tough time reining in the TMC MP. These visuals accessed by India Today adds another layer to the ugly drama that unfolded on Sunday after the opposition's demand for a wider debate is rejected. The day after, the chairman cracks the whip.
The question is the following members be suspended from the service of the House for a period of the remaining part of the current session of their unruly behavior, especially with the chair and their grossly disorder conduct, violation of the rules and etiquettes of the Rajya Sabha, thereby bringing disrepute to this august House and causing insult to the office of the Deputy Chairman yesterday.
Derek O'Brien, Dola Sen, Sanjay Singh, Rajiv Satav, KK Ragesh, Rupun Bora, Syed Nazir Hussain and Elamaran Karim are suspended for 1 week. The decision sparked immediate protests.
मेरा आग्रह है कि माननीय सदस्य जो 256 के तहत नेम किए गए हैं और कृपया सदन की कार्रवाई में न रहें.
In the eye of the storm, Deputy Chairman Dr. Harivansh urged suspended MPs to leave the House, but they refused. Instead, they began an indefinite dharna at the Gandhi statue in Parliament premises.
I'm not suspended. How can I be suspended? When even a single member asks for a division, it is the responsibility of the chair that the division is happening. But without division, the chair declared that we are suspended. How can it be possible? Can you show me any rule in the law book during pandemonium a bill can be passed? Is it there in the rule? How can you pass a bill when there is a din in the house?
अगर किसी मेंबर को रिमाइंडर ऑफ द हाउस के लिए सस्पेंड करने का प्रस्ताव होता है, इस पर न बहस होगी न अमेंडमेंट होगा. प्रस्ताव के पारित होने के बाद सीधा उस मेंबर को आदेश मानने की कानूनी बाध्यता है. तो यू विल नॉट फॉलो द नॉर्म्स, यू विल नॉट फॉलो द रूल्स, यू विल नॉट फॉलो द मर्यादा ऑफ प्रोप्राइटी, और आप डेमोक्रेसी की बात करते हैं.
12 opposition parties have written to President Ram Nath Kovind urging him not to grant assent to the bills. A delegation of the Akali Dal also met the President, making the same demand. Prime Minister Narendra Modi, however, is unfazed by the outrage. He backed the farm bills in his speech, addressing the people of poll-bound Bihar.
आखिर ये फैसला किस तरह किसानों की आर्थिक स्थिति को बदलने में बहुत मददगार साबित होगा, इन सवालों का जवाब भी अब ग्राउंड रिपोर्ट से ही मिल रहा है. किसानों को मिली इस आजादी के कई लाभ दिखाई देने शुरू भी हो गए हैं.
Expect more drama in Parliament in the days to come, with the centre and the opposition parties locking horns over the two contentious farm reforms bills. The battle lines have been drawn and it's a no-holds-barred contest between the two sides from Parliament to the streets. With Kamaljeet Kaur Sandhu in New Delhi, this is Anand Patel for India Today.
So even at this moment, opposition MPs in Parliament protesting right in front of the Gandhi statue. They are saying that they intend to stay there through the night. Whether they'll be allowed to or not still needs to be seen. But let's look at the bigger picture. Indian agriculture is seeing the most landmark historic reforms in decades. Experts like Ashok Gulati have said that this is like the 1991 moment for Indian agriculture, liberating Indian farmers in a way that they haven't been allowed to choose who they sell to outside a government-controlled mandi. And if the minimum support pricing mechanism stays, why then should the Indian farmer have a problem? Is this a protest being pushed and backed by political parties who see this as an opportunity to, rally the Indian Kisan against the Modi government? Joining us on the Newstrack showdown, I want to welcome first, representing the ruling Bharatiya Janata Party, its spokesperson Dr. Sudhanshu Trivedi. Squaring off against him from the Congress Party, we'll have its spokesperson Pawan Khera. And representing the Swaraj India campaign, its national president Yogendra Yadav, who works very actively with farmers and has been part of these protests. I want to go across to Professor Yogendra Yadav first to try and understand from him the case against the farm bills that have been pushed through in the Rajya Sabha and the Lok Sabha. The manner in which these were pushed through, I'll come to in just a moment. I want to focus right now on whether these are vested interests who fear that the commissions that they've been getting for decades are suddenly in jeopardy, and therefore they are fomenting trouble by agitating the farmers, getting them to protest. Do you believe that the farmers have genuine grievances with the bill? What are those grievances? And then we'll debate that. Yogendra Yadav.
Rahul, I speak to you from Karnataka, Bengaluru, where today all the major farmer organizations of Karnataka staged a massive rally followed by a massive statewide session. Your correspondent was there. Please ask your correspondent if he saw any middleman, any arati, anyone getting commission. These were farmers and farm laborer. Please also ask your correspondent if he saw anyone from Congress or anyone from any of the leading opposition parties. The answer is none, because these are farmers. Just as in Punjab, Congress has nothing to do with those protests. Those protests are being done in Punjab by people who have opposed Congress all their lives. So this is a lie. But anyway, as you correctly said, let us focus on the real issue. What do these three bills attempt? These three bills are attempts at corporatization of Indian farmers. None of the three bills has anything to do with the advantage for the farmer. The first bill, Essential Commodities Act, is meant for the stockist. It gives them unlimited stocking options. The consequence will be that farmers' bargaining power will go down and that stockists will be able to play with the price at their own sweet will. Number two, the APMC Act, which is heart of the matter. APM, the government says we are giving freedom to farmer to sell anywhere they want. This is a lie, because farmer has always had this freedom. There is not a single law in this country that bans farmers from selling their crop wherever they want to. If they wanted to sell outside APMC, they always could. What does it do? It gives freedom to traders to open private mandis outside the Sarkari mandi. But it is happening at an uneven level. Sarkari mandi will have taxes, Sarkari mandi will have regulation, Sarkari mandi will have registration and recording. Private mandi is not required to do any of these things.
No, but the farmer is not forced. Yogendra Yadav, you spend more time with farmers than most people in our newsroom, and therefore I'll defer to some of the points that you're making. But the reality is the farmer is not under any duress to go and sell to a private mandi. The government-controlled APMC mandi still continues, so there is nothing that's being taken away. In fact, in the cabinet committee meeting that the government held today, they've announced prices for MSP for products like wheat, gram, masoor, mustard, barley and sunflower for the months to come. So it's not as if the minimum support price mechanism is being done away, and the private mandis that you fear so much are not some mandi that the farmer is forced to go to, sir.
Rahul, that is the nuanced point I was making. Yes, farmers are not being forced to go to private mandi, but Rahul, if you are a farmer and if you know that there is a mandi which will not charge you 4 to 5%, where there is no recording, no regulation, for the first 1 year, won't you go there? It would be a fool who would then go to a Sarkari mandi. Within 1 or 2 years, Sarkari mandis will collapse. That is exactly what farmers' organizations are saying. That in the first instance, even if farmer or trader has some advantage in the first 6 months, the net result will be that farmers...
No, why will Sarkari mandis collapse? I'm sorry. The government has said they will continue buying whatever produce the farmers churn out. So why do you think these government mandis will collapse if in the first year the number of farmers coming to them goes down? That's not such a bad thing. There will be more competition. The farmers will have another alternative. They can potentially go there if they want. And why are you fearing that government mandis will collapse? The government says it is committed to ensuring that government procurement and MSP continues.
Exactly. I've heard this, Rahul, repeatedly. So I have a simple request to the BJP representatives sitting here and through them to the government. Please put your assurances in writing. You are saying nothing would happen to MSP. Why don't you include a simple clause in this act saying no mandi, private or sarkari, will trade below the MSP? After all, MSP is the minimum support price. So simply include one clause that we would have no sauda.
Okay, so let me start
MSP.
the debate with Sudhanshu Trivedi by putting this suggestion to him that your assurances on the minimum support price continuing, government procurement continuing, would be that much more weighty if this was built into the act as a provision. So that's part number one. This was suggested in Parliament. Why did you not accept this? And there is a counter as well, which is that even if it is in the Parliament's act, we've seen, for example, with the goods and services tax, the government can at some point in time in the future say this is an act of God and therefore go back even on what is committed in law. And therefore, just the fact that it's there in the law, which it isn't, by itself is no guarantee. How do you respond to the apprehensions raised by Yogendra Yadav and others? Sudhanshu Trivedi.
First thing, in this act, nothing is being altered. Every situation is as it is for farmers. Just one more option has been provided. But unfortunately, it has nothing to do with MSP. MSP will be there. You can see every few months the MSP will be sold. And Mr. Yogendra Yadav is saying that there should be a guarantee that nobody will take the price below the MSP, whether Sarkari or private. If Sarkari will be giving better MSP, why anybody will go to private? It's obvious in the market, nobody will sell when the better price is available. It's like 50 years back, there were only government colleges. When the private colleges were open, it doesn't mean the government colleges are shut down. They are still there. And some of the government colleges are doing very well. Like 30 years back, it was only Doordarshan. The private channels has come. It has improved or it has just declined. No. In 1991, the Congress government has brought the openness of the economy. So many private sectors were created and 90% of jobs today are in private sector. That's why it is 1991 movement. So, in my opinion, if the more options is being created, what is the problem there? Another example which he has cited, the Essential Commodities Act of 1955. I would like to remind, during UPA government, when Sharad Pawar ji was agriculture minister, there was an instance, if you remember, Supreme Court has ordered कि इतना अनाज था कि गवर्नमेंट रख ही नहीं पा रही थी अपने गोडाउन्स में और वो वेस्ट हो रहा था in the open sky. The Supreme Court had said when you are unable to stock, it is getting wasted, at least distribute it to the poor people. Still the Essential Commodities Act was there. It was at a time when we used to import even wheat and rice. अब अगर ये कहते हैं अभी भी वो रहना चाहिए, it means the claim of 1970s Green Revolution has been forfeited.
Okay, so let's build on this.
Now we are not the agriculture of paucity, we are the agriculture of plenty. Even in the COVID, the crop has been good.
Pavan
So,
Khera,
this is
government
the thing. We have to
colleges
move ahead.
and private colleges, it's not a versus, it's an and. People can go to a government college still. They have a private college they can go to. If the private mandi is selling at a price or is buying at a price less than the government mandi, nobody will come there. This is not under duress. The farmer is under no compulsion. Respond to that, and most importantly, the government has already put out MSP prices. So is the opposition trying to stir up some kind of momentum against the government, find some issue in which they can push the government into the corner? Are vested interests at play here? Pavan Khera?
Rahul, I am glad Sudhanshu ji started with the example of education. You see how Gujarat has finished government education and it has been bled to death and supported private education. That's exactly what they'll do to the agriculture market. Our fundamental problem is, and Yogendra ji has said almost everything that we had to say, our fundamental problem is, please assure there will be public procurement, and if there is trade happening outside the APMC yard, how will you keep the data? If you don't keep the data, you will not have any idea about the stocks. You will have no idea about the demand-supply equation of a particular crop. You will not be able to compute even your food inflation. They have not applied their mind. They did not deem it proper to have a discussion in the parliament. They just wanted to push through it. I don't know under what pressure. And they're talking about APMC will be, there's no level playing field between the APMC and the private player. I'll tell you how. APMC will still have to give the market fee. Outside what happens the APMC, the private player doesn't have to give any market fee. This is the shortcut to finishing the APMC. APMC 1-2 सालों में खत्म हो जाएगा.
No, but one second. Why are we, Mr. Khera, positioning these government mandis as the repository of all virtue? Who controls most of these government mandis? It's politicians from important political parties and influential traders and influential big farmers who control these mandis. It is in their vested interest for this current system to continue. If there is competition, a lot of the money that the states make and these netas make and the big farmers make will be jeopardized, Mr. Khera.
Rahul, the mandi system ensures that there is public procurement through the mandi and there is MSP. Now, अगर आप मंडी ही नहीं रखोगे तो ना तो आपके पास आवक का आंकड़ा होगा कि कितना आया. You won't have any idea. आप कंप्यूट ही नहीं करेंगे. Mandi is there to protect the grower. I quote Mr. Arun Jaitley, 2013, when he was fighting against the FDI in retail. He stood up in the parliament and gave the example of Europe and United States, that the governments of both these continents are spending $400 billion to ensure that the farmer stays alive. Walmart is not keeping the farmers alive in US and Europe. This is Arun Jaitley, not Pavan Khera, not Congress. He gave this example to the Congress. We were just trying to bring FDI in retail, if you remember. So, to say that mandis are a den of corruption and mandis are there only to exploit is an absolute misleading statement. अरे ट्रैफिक पुलिस वाला आपसे रिश्वत लेता है, तो क्या ट्रैफिक लॉस खत्म कर देंगे आप, ट्रैफिक पुलिस डिपार्टमेंट को बंद कर देंगे? That's not the answer. Yes, you create competition, no problem, but then keep a level playing field.
Okay, so you're raising the question, Sudhanshu Trivedi, about the absence of a level playing field. Government mandis will have to pay fees which private mandis will not. You will not be able to, Sudhanshu Trivedi, respond to what Pavan Khera says, calculate how much stock there is. How will you keep track of what's happening in the private mandis if you don't do this? Something as basic as food inflation also cannot be calculated. Respond to the arguments raised by Pavan. Sudhanshu.
It's very strange. Is it not available? So many data in the market. In each and every activity, there's been so many marketing companies do so much of data. How you can say only the government data, the government agency can have the data? And moreover, it is in trade, commerce and professional activities, the government control always gives less productivity. It is worldwide tried, tested and failed that if there is only government control, the trade, commerce and professional activities never flourish. Worldwide tried, tested and failed. And one more thing I would like to say, भाई ये बताइए, एक जमाने में तो घड़ी भी सरकार बनाती थी HMT, स्कूटर भी सरकार बनाता था विजय सुपर, उस जमाने में ये टीवी सेट भी सरकार बनाती थी अपट्रॉन, gradually the things get opened up. Why you not want to get the opportunities for farmers to open up? Today, the sons and daughters of the farmers are well educated because their rate of literacy is in 2011 was 27%. I think in 2021 will be less than 20%. So all the young comers are well educated, well acquainted with modern technology. Why should not have an opportunity? And one more thing I would like to remind. You remember in WTO Bali after 2014 when we went there and we have scuttled that summit. अरे उस जमाने में तो जो गवर्नमेंट ने प्रीवियस एग्रीमेंट किए थे आज एमएसपी देने लायक नहीं रह जाते. When we were alleged that we have disrupted WTO in Bali, you remember? Go and check on the internet. So one thing just I want to say, it is 1991 movement for farmers, but unfortunately, and one more thing I would like to quote to my dear friend Mr. Pawan Kheda. One sentence. Congress will repeal the Agriculture Product Marketing Committee Act and make the trade in agriculture produce, including export and interstate, free from all restriction. It is point number 11 on page number 17 of the Congress Manifesto of 2014. Then the Essential Commodities Act 1955 belong to the age of controls, and Congress promises to replace the act by an enabling law that can be invoked only in the case of emergency. This is the point number 21 on page number 17 of the Congress Manifesto. And does Kerala has Essential Commodity Agriculture APMC Act? No. And in fruit and vegetable, Punjab has done away with it. This is the same thing. जो लिखा नहीं है, उसी को लेके एक confusion create करना. There is no substance, only politics.
I want to show you, in fact, this video clip that's gone viral, which is of senior Congress leader Kapil Sibal inside Parliament when the UPA was in government, making a lot of the arguments that the government is making now, whereas the Congress now and other opposition parties are saying the opposite of what the UPA seemed to have been saying earlier. Let's listen to Kapil Sibal and then we'll resume our debate.
जब किसान बोता है और बेचना जाता है तो उसके पास कोई मार्केट नहीं है, उसको मालूम नहीं किस मार्केट को जाना है. अगर मंडी जाता है तो 35 से 40% सामान खराब हो जाता है. और इस बीच में आठ लोग कमीशन एजेंट होते हैं, बीच में 8 कमीशन एजेंट बिचौलिए. ये बेचारे किसान को 15 से 17% जो माल मार्केट में बिकता है उसका केवल 15 से 17% किसान को जाता है, बाकी बिचौलियों को चले जाता है. तो आप विपक्ष के नेता और विपक्ष दलों को यह तय करना है कि वो किसान के साथ हैं या बिचौलिए के साथ.
ये किसानों की आत्मा पर एक बहुत बड़ा एक अटैक है. ऐसे ही गोवा में ये पोर्चुगीज आए ट्रेडिंग करने के लिए, बाद गोवा पर कब्जा कर लिया. ऐसे ही डच कॉलोनीज, ऐसे ही फ्रेंच कॉलोनीज, ऐसे ही जर्मन कॉलोनीज वर्ल्ड ओवर ट्रेडिंग के हिसाब से निकली. ऐसी ही पैकेजिंग की कि हम किसान, सर जिसको आप फायदा पहुंचाना चाहते हो वो तो हाथ जोड़ रहे, सड़कों पर निकला हुआ लाखों की तादाद में.
Pawan Khera, when the UPA was in power, Kapil Sibal's impassioned plea is about the need to dismantle the mandis, which are controlled by a few influential traders, and give the farmers the option of selling directly to whoever the farmer wants to sell to, which is exactly what Sudhanshu Trivedi in the BJP is now saying. Is it the case that what you say depends on where you sit?
No. I wish you had also run the response of Sushma ji to this speech. Then it would have been a level playing field between me and Sudhanshu. But unfortunately, you only shown Kapil Sibal. And now, for what Mr. Kapil Sibal said, I'll tell you what our manifesto says. Mr. Sudhanshu does
go on and repeat. I mean, this is just a clip that went viral. It landed on my WhatsApp, which is how I put it out. But you can repeat what Sushma said. Go ahead.
Even Sushma ji and Arun Jaitley ji's clip is viral. In fact, Rajdeep tweeted Sushma ji's speech this morning. Anyway, forget that. Our manifesto very clearly says to introduce farmer markets at every 2 to 3 kilometers. Now, that was our response to unshackle the farmers from just APMC. We said, let's have farmers market every 2 to 3 kilometers because APMCs are at a distance away. The farmers have a problem going there. We are not saying reform nahi hona chahiye. All that we are saying is, please ensure there is public procurement. Please ensure there is MSP. By the way, 3 महीने हो गए ordinance लाए हुए Sudhanshu ji. कपास क्यों एमएसपी से कम में बिक रहा है, मक्का क्यों एमएसपी से कम में बिक रहा है, मूंग क्यों एमएसपी से कम में बिक रहा है, बट वो भले कम में बिक रहा होगा मार्केट में, farmer has an option today to go to the APMC and sell his kapas, moong and makka to the APMC क्योंकि वहां एमएसपी मिल रहा है. But when you don't have a level playing field, APMC will not be able to match up.
But Yogendra Yadav, at some level, we need to put politics on the side and think about this rationally. If the government blindly keeps procuring at a certain fixed minimum support price, crops like paddy and wheat, and we end up with far greater stocks than the government actually requires. They fill up our godowns. They are lying outside 30-40% according to Food Corporation of India data, going waste. You've got rats eating them up. What's the purpose that's being served? At some level, there has to be a rational argument about how much the government procures. It cannot be an endless pit.
I'm very happy, Rahul, that now we are talking straightforward. Forget Congress, BJP, forget their manifestos. And I'm very happy that you are actually acknowledging what is the real fear of the farmers. Farmers are saying exactly what you are saying, that the government is going to withdraw from procurement. And I'm very happy that you articulated it honestly, because everyone knows that is the intent behind it.
No, but they're denying,
now,
they're saying that procurement will continue, MSP will continue. They're not agreeing to that at all. It's a question that I am raising because I believe it's a genuine question that needs to be looked at. If the government endlessly keeps procuring, then you have much more stocks than you need, and that stock is rotting away in the go down, sir. Surely this is a question that needs to be asked and answered.
Rahul, I'm actually answering your question if you would just hear me. Number one, in order to ensure minimum support price to the farmer, procurement is not the only method. There are 5 or 6 other methods through which it can be ensured, provided the government is willing to say MSP is sacrosanct, provided the government is willing to give a legal guarantee of that. There are several methods through which it can be done. You don't need to overstock your stores, number one. Number two, it is, as has repeatedly been pointed out, it is not that the government is offering one more alternative. No. Basically, APMCs are being set for failure because they would have a cost which the private sector will not have. If the government wants to give an honest alternative choice, put them at par, make them pay the same fee. Then let us have a fair competition. Number three, you keep referring
to why should they be? One second, sir. If Indigo can run an airline flight from Delhi to Mumbai at 4,500 and Air India can only run it at 7,000, why should you tell Indigo that aap bhi apna pricing, your ticket should only be 7,000 rupees?
No, Rahul, you're getting it completely wrong. There is a legal requirement of fee on the government mandi, which is not there according to this law on the private mandi. That is what I'm speaking of. I'm not speaking of efficiencies. Number three, if you want to improve APMCs, which need to be improved, why don't you simply implement Atal Bihari Vajpayee government's improved APMC Act? Please ask BJP representative, why have their own BJP's own state governments never implemented the act, which was supposed to improve the APMCs?
Okay. So let's build on the most cogent part of your argument, which is that why should private mandis not pay fees which the government mandis are mandated to? Why should you not provide a level playing field? That sounds like a perfectly rational argument. Sudhanshu Trivedi.
Rahul, how it can be a rational argument? When the government mandis are having huge infrastructure existing, free of cost, the land, the building, the procurement aspect, and private will have to make everything on its own. So the level playing field is not lopsided in favor of the private, rather than it is lopsided in favor of the government mandi. Still they are apprehending that this may collapse. As you have given an example of the Air India, and I would also like to give an example. The State Transport Corporation still runs the buses, and the private buses also go. The private taxis also go. So that has given ample opportunities for the passengers. It's not just that we keep on that only Air India should be there, the only you have to travel with the state transport buses, etc. So this is nothing but up till now, all sections of society have got, like this pen. The producer of this pen has the opportunity to sell anywhere. And one more thing, farmer can have his income insured. Before plowing, he can decide with any other contractor. भाई इतना मुझे मेरा होगा, इतना आप ले लीजिएगा. बात खत्म हो गई.
No, but you know, about 80% of Indian farmers.
इसका लाभ नहीं मिला था, बाकी सब.
But Sudhanshu Trivedi, about 80% of Indian farmers are small and marginal farmers, and for them, contract farming doesn't have any great meaning. It's only for the large farmers who will be able to benefit from the ability to sell directly to a Pepsi or to a Walmart or to whichever company is entering into that contract. Those with 1 or 2 hectares of land, it doesn't really benefit them. They can't really possibly enter into these contracts.
Those who are having 1 or 2 acres of land, ये बटाई क्या है? What is this बटाई? This is contract farming with no legal base, with no structured thing to ensure the interest of the farmer. पूछना चाहता हूँ, बटाई होती है कि नहीं? All small and marginal farmers are having. What is this? We are giving a structured setup to protect their interest.
No, but Pawan Khera, you know, it's also absolutely true that unless we find a way of farmers working together in groups as cooperatives and pooling their land beyond the 1 or 2 hectares that the current generation may have, unless it's 100 or 1,000 hectares, Indian farming can never acquire the scale. Forget that one farmer, it will help the entire village, it will help the entire community if you can produce at scale and sell at scale.
First of all, I take the example, I'll come to this question. I take the example of road transport and private buses. Sudhanshu ji, अगर आप road tax private bus से कम लेंगे और सरकारी बस से ज़्यादा लेंगे, that's exactly what you are doing in the mandis. कि आप उनसे तो फीस लेंगे, इनसे नहीं लेंगे. Now tell me, is that fair to just take road tax from the private bus and not from the सरकारी bus? Number 2, Rahul, you asked me about contract farming. Tell me, the dispute redressal mechanism which this act or this bill suggests, do you expect a 1-acre farmer to be able to go to the doorstep of the SDM? पटवारी तक तो पहुंच नहीं पाता हमारा किसान, SDM तक जाएगा. फार्मर को इन्होंने दिया है 30 days का टाइम टू अपील. प्राइवेट प्लेयर को दिया है 60 days का टाइम. Everything skewed in favor of the private player. Why? So why are you not giving a level playing field even to the poor farmer? Forget the APMC. चलिए आपको APMC बंद करनी है, समझ में आ गई आपकी बात. आप level playing field सब जगह क्यों नहीं दे देते? Number 2, ये सब discussions we could have had in the parliament. Why didn't you allow a proper 2 दिन 3 दिन का discussion? Now that's आपके against क्यों शक क्यों हो रहा है? क्योंकि आप जल्दबाजी में उसको पास कराना चाहते हैं.
Okay, let Sudhanshu Trivedi respond to this. And what, you know, the whole point of having a parliament, Dr. Trivedi, is that there must be deliberation, that there must be discussion, that bills, when required, can be sent to standing committees of parliament. I have some data over here, which has been compiled by PRS Legislative Research, which says that out of the 82 bills since you won the general elections in 2019, only 17, which is about 20%, have been referred to standing committees for in-depth review. In previous governments, that number in the 14th Lok Sabha stood at 60%, in the 15th Lok Sabha stood at 71%. Why is the BJP government averse to or doing away with the practice of sending bills for deliberation to standing committees?
If you look by this logic, every decade, every year, the technology changes and things go fast. So in the same manner, we have learned with the previous experiences. And the things have come. I just want to ask the question. For 3.5 hours, the discussion was there.
No, sir. When you have a standing committee, outside experts come in, bills become richer, you hear different kinds of argument, opposition MPs give their points of view, and you could have passed the same bill in the next session of parliament. If this is a landmark historic reform which hasn't been done in decades, could this not have been pushed by just a few months till the next session of parliament?
Okay, in the entire discussion of 3.5 hours, can they put certain logics on which they have said that the parliament was incompetent in doing this and the further detailed research is required and it has to be referred to select committee? No, just it is my thinking that it should be referred to select committee. Otherwise, their own state governments have done so much of things. Their statements are on record. Their actions are on record. Their manifesto is on record. And they are unable to provide, my dear friend can provide, that their speakers on parliament has spoken this point that this cannot be discussed in parliament. It has to need a detailed research and it has to be done in parliament. For example, one more thing I would like to say. Our manifesto was there. We have done with 4 crore feedbacks, means 40 million feedbacks. We have not done on its own. अब ये बता दें कि इन्होंने कितने फीडबैक से लिया था. अगर इन्होंने भी फीडबैक से लिया था तो वही जनता का ही फीडबैक अवेलेबल है.
No sir, Parliament has a certain process which includes bills being referred to standing committees for deliberation, for discussion. It's a key part of parliamentary procedure. Whether it is the Jammu and Kashmir reorganization bill or the triple talaq bill, this government is pushing through bills because it has the majority and you can do so. This is a dangerous precedent and it is increasingly becoming the norm, Dr. Trivedi.
No. On the contrary, if you look, the era in which the governments were in minority, the bills were referred to Senate committees, a number of committees, there were a group of ministers also to take the productivity of the parliament and the productivity of the execution and other things and compare it today. The last session of Rajya Sabha was the most productive in the last 50 years or so. And the previous one was having more than 100% productivity. Was there anything previously? So that's what I am saying. If there is logical thing, you just put on record that we need a scientific research on this. We need a climate research on this. This cannot be done in 2-3 days. It needs 2-3 months. So we have to have a better discussion on this. जैसे कि होता था ऐसी बात नहीं थी. इंसॉल्वेंसी, बैंक्रप्सी कोर्ट, बहुत सारी चीजों में गया. बताइए तो आप बताएंगे नहीं और उसके आप कह देंगे बस हम कह रहे हैं इसलिए कर देंगे.
Khera, quick final response. I also want to show our viewers the mood amongst the farmers. Very quickly, Pavan.
Rahul, Mr. Sudhanshu Trivedi feels that anything which goes to the select committee basically proves that parliament is incapable. As a parliamentarian, he is trying to insult the parliament. Select committee is a very essential part of parliamentary democracy. You can't undermine either of the two. So don't say that, please. For God's sake, you are an MP now. Number 2, all that we wanted, and even in the select committee, we would have said, भैया please add MSP. हम research चाहते हैं. बिहार में क्या हुआ? आपने करके देख लिया ना. 1% procurement हुआ है wheat का. Ask the farmers of Bihar today. So all these things need to be gone into. You can't just push these things. 86% farmers का सवाल है. लाखों परिवारों का सवाल है.
I want to show our viewers now how farmers out in the streets, and largely the protests so far have been restricted to Punjab, Haryana, Western UP, which is also where the APMC Mandi mechanism is strongest. They've now spread to states like Karnataka, which is where Yogendra Yadav was. We're hearing that the Trinamool will organize massive protests in West Bengal. And remember, the last time when the government came out with a radical reform measure concerning farmers on the land acquisition bill, there was huge backlash, huge protest, and the government had to ultimately backtrack. Opposition parties are clearly hoping this will become a lightning rod of all kinds of grievances which the farmers have, and they are doing their best to amplify the issue to the extent possible. Take a look at this report.
The controversial Farm Reforms Bill passed amid unprecedented scenes of chaos in Parliament. The bills will soon become law, but the protests by the farmers are far from over. On Monday, multiple farmer groups staged dharnas in various parts of the country seeking rollbacks of the bills. The protests that erupted in North Indian states of Punjab and Haryana are gaining strength despite Prime Minister Narendra Modi's reassurances. In Haryana's Jind, farmers were joined by Congress workers. The farm protesters marched onto the streets and demanded immediate rollback. The protests have spilled over to other parts of the country. Hundreds of farmers in Uttar Pradesh's Amroha hit the streets against farm bills. The farmers questioned the priorities of the government in passing law during a pandemic.
हमारे लोकप्रिय प्रधानमंत्री नरेंद्र मोदी जी ने ऐसे कोविड-19 में जहां देश ही नहीं पूरा संसार इस महामारी से गुजर रहा था, इसके बावजूद देश का अन्नदाता अपना और अपने परिवार की चिंता किया बने देश का पेट भरने के लिए दिन रात फसलें पैदा कर रहा है इससे पूरे देश के किसान में आक्रोश है।
In India's IT city, farmers marched on city roads, shouting anti-government slogans and described the bills as anti-farmer.
ಸರ್ APMC ಕಾಯ್ದೆ ಭೂ ಸ್ವಾಧೀನ ಕಾಯ್ದೆಯನ್ನು ಇವನ್ನ ಹೆಂಗ್ ತಗೋಬೇಕಂತೇಳಿ ನಾವು ಇದು ಮಾಡಕ್ ಬಂದ ಸರ್ ಎಫೆಕ್ಟ್ ಅಂದ್ರೆ ರೀ ಈಗ ನಮ್ಗೆ ಕಾಶಿ ಇದ ನಮ್ಮ ಹಕ್ಕು ನಮ್ಮನ್ನು ಕೇಳ್ತಾ ಇದೀವಿ ನಾವೇನು ಇವು ಸರ್ಕಾರದವ್ರದ್ದು ಏನು ಕೇಳ್ತಾ ಇಲ್ಲ ನಮ್ಮ ಹಕ್ಕನ್ನು ನಾವು ನಮ್ಮ ಕಡೆ ಬಿಡ್ರತೆ ಕೇಳ್ತಾ ಇದೀವಿ ಸರ್.
With Nolan Pinto, Bureau Report, India Today.
Farmer protests likely to increase over the days to come. The government, though, has announced the MSP for wheat for the months to come, as also for gram, masoor, mustard, barley and sunflower, in the hope that this will give farmers some confidence and some assurance. We will track very closely how these farmer protests pan out from here on. Make no mistake, this is a landmark reform. Yes, there may be improvements which could have been ringed in before this bill was pushed through, and maybe this could have been deliberated for longer, but be that as it may, the fact that farmers have an extra alternate to sell their produce is a step that must necessarily be welcomed. And now, as is often the case, it's getting caught up in a vicious political circle. We're slipping into a break. I'll have more for you on the other side when we come back with part B of the Newstrack. Stay with us.